Now, somewhere along the line, as a bass player, you'll be playing a blues of some kind, whether it's, you know, urban Chicago blues, or whether it's something like Status Quo, or whatever it's going to be. Now, there's a good pattern that you can learn that covers all of the strings, and it doesn't use any open strings, which means that you can move it to any key that you like. So let's pick a key, I don't know, A. So that is the 5th fret on the E string. So I'm going to play this riff once through, and you can kind of see how it works, and then I'll describe it in a bit more detail. So. To the start again. So what I've got is a riff that uses, once again, all of my fingers. If you look at my Rapper's Delight video, you can see that I've basically used all of my fingers instead of something like that. If you're having to move about a lot, actually you're making much more work for yourself, and also you won't be able to communicate with the rest of the band. You'll just be standing there going, ah, sort of panicking about where to go next. So getting used to using, in particular, your last finger. Now, how you use your last finger, it's quite hard to curl it up and get any strength out of it. So when I do this, if it's not quite strong enough, you get that sort of buzzing. So what I do is essentially lock my last finger from knuckle to tip, and using this side of my hand to give it strength. So I've got a nice sort of strong right angle shape here. So here I've used the entire strength of this side of my hand to make that last finger work. Of course, when you're up here, if you're playing a solo, you're in a slightly different position because the frets are closer together, and you can play it more like you're playing a piano or a guitar, where all the fingers act independently. But when you're having to cover something where the frets are at their widest here, that can be a bit of an issue. So having your last finger kind of tensed up, almost locked into position, really helps. Now this is a classic one for keeping each string silent as you play. So after the initial first note, the initial note, the A, when you go on to the next string, if you don't cover the string you've just played, it's going to sound. There is a solution to this, and it really does involve both hands again. If you can keep the strings muted with both hands, it means that you are really on a good sort of, it's just a good habit to get into. So this string, when I go on to this note here, the C sharp, 4th fret A string, not only am I going to touch the first string with this finger as well as playing its own note, I'm going to pluck the string here and come to rest on the E string. So there is absolutely no way that this string can sound at all. One of the reasons for doing it with two hands is if I played the D, for example, I can hear another note in there. It's because all the way along the string, there are harmonics, and they will sound if you touch the string lightly. So if I was going to play a D here, I've got the possibility of that string sounding. So that's the reason for using both hands to mute strings that aren't being used. So just on the first pattern, we've got middle, index, last, index, middle, and then you come back the other way and you're back to your first note again. Little error there. That's better. When you're playing a note on the bass, ideally try to get the finger right up to the fret, not here, because actually you need more pressure. The physics of this being that that string has to touch that fret firmly in order for that note to sound. If it's not, you get all sorts of vibration and buzzing there, and you don't want that. So play always right on the fret. So 5th fret, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 5th fret refers to the space you're going to play in, but really you should be playing right up against the fret. So how it works with the blues is that you've got 2 of those. There's a second one. And then the next one, you actually repeat that pattern, but starting on the A string instead. And then back to the first. And then it's something slightly different here. You could go up here, but actually it's worth working out what those notes would be if you were in the same position. It means you don't have to move at all. Let's get the right notes first. It also means that you can communicate. You don't have to look at your left hand or right hand. Now, in terms of your right hand, there's no need to look at it. It's like looking at the gear stick in a car. You wouldn't do it. You feel your way through the gear change, stick shift if you're in the US. So you can basically find all of your strings, and they actually seem quite close together. I mean, they're a good, couple of inches apart with the top, with the outer strings here. But if you can feel your way without looking here, that is a good policy. So a little bit of right hand technique here. If I'm plucking the E string, I can put my thumb on the pickup here. Early Fender Precision basses used to have a little piece of wood here where you could brace your thumb to play the E string, but it doesn't appear anymore. But that's okay, you can just pluck using this, using the pickup. Plucking in different places gives you lots of different sounds, and also because the 2 fingers that you use, so index and middle finger, they're going to produce slightly different sounds because you're playing in different areas of the string, and that's a good thing. It means there's some sort of continuity to what you're doing rather than it's just sounding all the same. When you're playing on any of the other strings, you can put your thumb on the 4th string here. The only string that you might have a problem with is the G, because you've left the second one open. But if you are playing on the G, what you can do is you can put your thumb on the A string and then the back part of your thumb resting on the E string. So you've got 2 strings that are completely silenced. The D string will be silenced when you've played the G because your finger is resting on it. So it's worth getting used to thinking, where's my thumb going to go? Is it going to go on the pickup? Is it going to go on the E string? Or is it going to go on the A string with your top half of the top side of your thumb on the E string? So it's worth getting into that mindset really early on when you're playing the bass. It means that you don't have more than one note at once, which generally you wouldn't have. You can get this sort of thing sometimes, but generally as a bass player you're playing one note at once. So that blues bass line, 5, 6, 7, 8. just slight variations on that. So that blues is in A. Now it's worth knowing the positions of the notes on the bass, at least for the E and the A strings. Don't worry too much about the D and the G, because actually they're kind of repeats but 2 frets up. So if I was going to play in G, I'd be starting at 3rd fret. B, I'd be up at 7th. D, I'd be at 5th on the next string. There are problems though. If you start on the A string, you've kind of run out of frets. So what you can actually do is just start on 10th instead, so that you can go up and do all your other things. Lots and lots of possibilities here, but I hope that gives a good introduction to the blues, and particularly this right hand damping thing here. So that's really important to get from the word go, even if you're playing just a simple riff. When you're playing this string, you've got to cover those two. You obviously can't do it with this hand, so it has to be this hand instead. If I do this, all sorts of stuff happening there. Anyway, there we go.